Do you need a good night's sleep? Then watch something else because these true, scary school lockdown horror stories are so scary they will keep you up tonight. Are you planning to spend the entire day there, Tom? Anthony called out. Frankly, anything would be better than attending a maths lecture. And if I could delay it for a bit, then so be it. But Anthony knew my antics, and I knew if I didn't leave the stall in a minute, he would do something stupid. You never knew what to expect from this guy. I stepped out, and it took me some convincing, arguing, and bribing to make him agree to take a long way and pick something up from the vending machine. We both heard notification pings from our phones as I was drying my hands. We looked at each other surprised and quickly checked our phones. Both of us had similar texts from a few class fellows. Lockdown, don't come out, not a drill. Anthony tried to laugh it off, commenting that they were probably trying to prank us, and said it probably wasn't something grave. If it was, there would have been an alarm or announcement. Not wanting to take any risk, I decided to check the school's official website, where they sent alerts in case of any emergency situation. True to my suspicions, there was an emergency alert. All students were to stay in their classrooms and lock the doors. It didn't take us long to realize that we probably didn't hear the announcement over the sound of the bathroom stalls and sinks, and it was possible as this bathroom was located relatively far from the classrooms. For a moment, we were just plastered in the same place, unable to figure out what to do. Anthony started to ramble. If we try to sprint, we can reach the classroom. But if we run into the shooter? No, we should just stay here. Tom, what do we do? I don't want to die. He sounded genuinely terrified. The reality of the situation finally hit me. We needed to move to a safe spot instantly. I told him to stay silent so we wouldn't get noticed. I whispered that we should probably lock the bathroom door. Anthony responded that it would just make it evident that someone was hiding inside. He was right, and I found myself completely dumbfounded, but then I weighed the possibilities. It would give us extra time if someone broke in. The police may be here during that additional time. Every second was crucial. We got up quickly, locked the door, turned the lights off, and hid inside the second stall. The minutes felt like hours as we waited in the bathroom. Not knowing what was happening outside, we tried to stay calm, but there was no doubt that our nerves were getting the best of us. But we couldn't risk any movement. That's when we heard it. The sounds of footsteps outside the bathroom door. Someone started to knock on the door, trying to break it down. We had no clue who it was. The shooter? Someone to rescue us? Or someone trying to hide? We backed away more towards the wall. I felt like I would have a heart attack at any moment. Was it really the end of our lives? Then, I realized that I hadn't even gotten to say goodbye to my mother. I took out my phone to text my mother. That's the moment the door clicked. Luckily, it was the SWAT team. We later discovered there was an active shooter in the school. That was the scariest day of my life, especially since I was just a 13-year-old. The experience made me aware of the importance of being prepared for emergencies. Everyone knows the experience of school lockdowns is miserable and terrifying. I'm Jamie, and I underwent my first severe lockdown as a sophomore. It was truly one of the most traumatizing incidents of my life. And even though it happened years ago, it's still like a new wound, fresh in my mind. We were in the middle of a physics lesson. I vividly recall we were learning about kinematics with Miss Peterson. Suddenly, the loudspeaker snapped to life. The computerized voice announced that the school was going into a lockdown. My classmates and I looked at each other in confusion, wondering what was happening. There were never any mock drills ever in our school. Although there were several classes about what to do in such a situation, every training session flew right out of the window at that moment. If it wasn't for our teacher directing and briefing us to stay calm, the entire classroom would have broken out into chaos. She asked the student closest to the switchboard to turn off the lights. Later, asking us to take shelter under our desks in pairs so we could comfort each other if someone was facing severe anxiety. I was terrified, not knowing what was happening. It was horrifying being in an uncertain position without being able to protect myself. I was sure that everyone else was probably feeling the same way too. Trying to calm myself down, I tried to tune out my surroundings, but it wasn't really possible. That's when we all heard it. someone banging at the door as harshly and loudly as possible. As if it wasn't scary enough as it was, he started to scream. When I focused on what he was shouting, they were threats. He claimed he would kill every single one of us when he got in if the teacher didn't open the door. While shouting profanities, he was constantly trying to kick and open the door. He roared again, saying violent things, curses, and claims that he would open fire. He was repeatedly demanding to be let in, going so far as to say that if a kid opened the door, he would let them live. I was scared that someone would get up and cause our deaths, but luckily the teacher had successfully calmed the class down, telling them to stay silent. The teacher tried to keep us calm, but it was hard to ignore the sound of the man's angry voice. She whispered to my classmates, trying to keep them calm, but I could see the fear in everyone's eyes. We were trapped with no way out. I couldn't help but think about all the school shootings that I had seen on the news, and I was sure we would be next. I could hear him still violently shaking and trying the doorknob. He then started hitting the door with something heavy, probably a gun, and I was sure he would break the door down and come in any minute. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, the banging ceased, but the silence was even more frightening. We waited in silence, listening for any other sounds. Abruptly, we heard a gunshot. It was then followed by some noises which were coming closer. I configured that these muffled voices and footsteps were right outside the door, but we couldn't tell what was happening outside. We waited for probably half an hour. Eventually, the police announced it was safe to leave the place. It turned out that the man was an ex-convict who had escaped from a nearby prison, and the gunshot was by the police to keep him down. I would have never thought that something like that could happen at my school. I work at a middle school as an 8th grader computer science teacher. The students usually call me Mr. Hunter. After the lab activities were over, I rounded up the work and stayed late to grade papers and prepare for the next day's lessons. That's when I heard someone's footsteps heading downstairs towards the basement. As I looked up, I saw an unfamiliar face. It was a man around 35 to 40 years old. He appeared to be quite intimidating with his tall, muscular build and stern expression. His confident body language and fierce gaze made me uncomfortable, and I instinctively took a step back. Despite my initial reaction, I tried to remain calm and not let the intimidation be seen. He asked me where the closest exit was. That was rather strange. Why would someone need to exit from the basement, especially when the school had 3 other exits on the ground floor? It didn't really make sense, and the urgency in his voice was rather alarming. He got impatient with my silence and confusion, instantly demanding an answer. The thing was that all the exits were locked, but I couldn't tell him that as it would leave me in a vulnerable state, unable to escape. The intruder could have taken advantage of that, so I tried to stay calm and think of a way out. I replied that I was a new teacher and wasn't much acquainted with the map, and the only exit I used was the main one. He grew even more agitated, upon which I reasoned that I could look it up on the school website. He was standing a little distance from me, so I risked opening the messages from the teacher's group chat. There was a message in the group that there was an armed intruder in the school, with a brief description and a CCTV picture of him. Then it hit me. I was in serious trouble. Too late, I realized I was trapped in the basement with a dangerous person. The intruder was becoming increasingly agitated, and I feared for my life. Hurriedly, I pointed toward an exit. As soon as he realized the exit was closed, he returned. But this time, he stepped forward, holding a gun, and pointed it toward me. I froze with dread, unable to move or speak. Still, I tried to plead with him, insisting that I knew nothing about the exits. But he was persistent, stating that he had nothing to lose. If he was going to jail, he might as well commit a bigger crime. Angrier, he started to approach me, with the gun still pointed directly at my head. That's when I assumed it was all over. Miraculously, there was a sound of footsteps on the stairs. The man turned to face the noise, allowing me to grab a nearby object and defend myself. That's when the police raided the basement and arrested him. I still remember that day and avoid going to the basement like that anymore. There is one thing more scary than these true school lockdown horror stories, and it is what your life would be like without watching more of our videos.